Captain stared at the same empty stretch of space she had been staring at for the past 4 months. The frigate Indomitable showed nothing but distant stars and the occasional piece of space debris drifting through the neutral corridor. Behind her, the bridge crew moved through their duties with the mechanical precision of people who had done the same tasks 1,000 times before. 17 years. That's how long the Galactic Coalition had been fighting the Dominion. 17 years of battles, sieges, and diplomatic failures. Humanity had joined the Coalition 5 years ago, eager to prove themselves among the ancient races that ruled the galaxy. But the Council treated human ships like decorative pieces on a game board, useful for patrols and supply runs, but never trusted with real operations. "Another thrilling day in paradise, Captain," Commander said from his station. His tone carried the dry humor that had kept the crew sane during these endless patrols. "We've now gone 123 days without seeing a single hostile contact." Smiled despite herself. "Don't jinx it. The moment you complain about being bored, something always happens." As if the universe had been waiting for exactly that cue, Lieutenant Sarah Park's console lit up with urgent alerts. The science officer's fingers flew across her controls, her expression shifting from routine boredom to sharp focus in an instant. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual energy signatures. Bearing 270, distance approximately 40,000 kilometers." Straightened in her chair. "What kind of signatures?" "High-energy particle emissions, exotic matter resonance, and significant thermal output." Park's voice grew more concerned with each word. "Captain, whatever that is, it's big, really big, and it's on the side of the neutral corridor." The neutral corridor was sacred ground in this war. Both sides had agreed never to place military installations or conduct operations within its boundaries. It was the one treaty that neither coalition nor Dominion had violated in 17 years. Breaking it would risk turning the neutral systems, who used the corridor for trade, against whichever side crossed that line. "Put it on screen," ordered. The shifted to show a massive asteroid field. At first, saw nothing unusual. Then Park highlighted the energy signature, and the computer enhanced the image. Hidden within the tumbling rocks was a structure that made blood run cold. It was a weapon. Not just any weapon, but something on a scale she had never seen before. The installation stretched across multiple asteroids, connected by energy bridges that pulsed with barely contained power. Ships, dozens of them, moved around the structure like worker bees around a hive. "Park, tell me what I'm looking at." The science officer's hands shook slightly as she compiled her analysis. "Based on the energy output and the configuration, it's a directed energy weapon of unprecedented scale. If my calculations are correct, once it's fully operational, it will have enough range and power to target coalition core worlds from here. Captain, this thing could destroy planets." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member understood what this meant. Home, New Terra, was a core world. Her sister lived there with her 2 children. Millions of families, human and alien alike, called the core worlds home. "Send everything we have to Coalition Command," said. "Priority 1, maximum encryption." "Move to the communication station." "Transmitting now, Captain. Command should receive it within the hour." That hour felt like a day. Kept the Indomitable at the edge of sensor range, watching as more ships arrived at the hidden installation. Each one brought more components, more exotic matter, more pieces of the weapon that would soon be able to reach across the stars and end billions of lives. When the response from Coalition Command finally arrived, read it 3 times, certain she must have misunderstood. She hadn't. "They're ordering us to maintain observation and await further instructions," she said quietly. "They want to convene the full council to discuss the implications of entering the neutral corridor." Looked at her with disbelief. "Captain, that weapon could be operational in days, maybe less." "I'm aware, Commander. The council will debate this for weeks. They always do. I'm aware of that too. Sent another message, this one marked urgent, explaining that time was critical. The response came back even faster this time, and it was worse. The Council acknowledged the threat but insisted that violating the Neutral Corridor Treaty could turn neutral systems against the Coalition. They needed time to reach out to neutral governments, to build consensus, to ensure that any action they took would have political support. 3 more days passed. Sent updated reports every 6 hours, each one showing the weapon's progress toward completion. They were working around the clock now. Park estimated they would have the Starbreaker, as Coalition intelligence had started calling it, fully operational within 72 hours. Coalition Command's responses became increasingly bureaucratic. They needed more data. They needed to verify the threat through multiple sources. They needed the Council to reach unanimous agreement on any action. They needed, but they never actually did anything. On the 4th day, stood alone in her quarters, looking at a photo of her sister's family. Her nephew had just turned 8. Her niece was 5. They had never known anything but peace on New Terra, never had to worry about war touching their lives. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one and took a seat without being invited. That was the kind of friendship they had built over 3 years of serving together. You're thinking about going in, said. It wasn't a question. The thought has crossed my mind. It would be a violation of direct orders. Court-martial, probably execution. The Council races don't look kindly on humans who disobey. I know. Your career would be over. The Indomitable would likely be impounded. The crew could face charges. I know that too. He sipped his coffee, studying her face. You know what my grandfather used to tell me? He said humans didn't ask permission to split the atom. We didn't ask permission to leave Earth, to colonize other worlds, or to join this war. Sometimes you do what's right and apologize later. If you're lucky, they forgive you. If you're not, at least you did the right thing. Looked at her first officer. If I do this, I won't order anyone to follow me. This would be my choice, my responsibility. With respect, Captain, that's bullshit, smiled. You think this crew would let you fly in there alone? We signed up to protect people, not to watch them die while politicians argue about protocols. That night called a meeting of her senior officers. She laid out the situation, the risks, and her plan. She made it clear that anyone who wanted to could request a transfer, no questions asked, no judgment rendered. Not a single officer left the room. Lieutenant, her chief engineer, actually laughed. Captain, my family came from Nigeria. My great-great-grandmother fought in the water wars when nobody thought her people had any chance of winning. She didn't ask permission to defend her home. Neither will I. Park nodded. My ancestors were Korean. They know something about impossible odds and doing what's necessary. I'm in. One by one, every officer pledged their support. They understood what they were risking. They also understood what would be lost if they did nothing. The next morning, sent one final message to Coalition Command. She detailed her intentions, explained her reasoning, and took full responsibility for what was about to happen. She made it clear that her crew was following her orders, that any consequences should fall on her shoulders alone. Then, before Command could respond, she turned to her helmsman. Lieutenant, set course for those coordinates, maximum stealth configuration. Aye, Captain, plotting course now. Stood beside her command chair as the Indomitable's engines powered up. You know they're going to be screaming at us to turn around. I know, gestured to the communications officer. Cut all incoming transmissions from Coalition Command. I don't want to hear it. Captain, they're already broadcasting warnings, the officer reported. Multiple priority 1 orders to stand down. Are we experiencing communications difficulties, Lieutenant? The young officer caught on immediately. Yes, Captain, severe interference. can't seem to receive anything at all. Allowed herself a small smile. How unfortunate. I suppose we'll have to proceed on our own initiative. The Indomitable crossed into the neutral corridor, her stealth systems engaged, her weapons charged, her crew ready. Behind them, Coalition Command's increasingly frantic messages went unheard. Ahead of them, the Star Breaker continued its countdown to completion. Watched the asteroid field grow larger on the. She knew that what she was doing would change everything. Her career was already over. Her freedom, possibly her life, would be forfeit once this was done. The Council would use her as an example of why humans couldn't be trusted with important decisions. She didn't care. New Terra would still be there tomorrow. Her nephew would still play in his backyard. Her niece would still go to school. Millions of people on dozens of worlds would wake up to another peaceful day, never knowing how close they had come to extinction. That was worth any price. "Time to target," she asked. "4 hours at current speed, Captain," replied. "All hands, this is the captain." His voice echoed through every corridor of the ship. "We're about to do something that will probably get us court-martialed. We're going to violate the Neutral Corridor Treaty, disobey direct orders, and attack a superior enemy force. We're doing this because 17 years of playing by the rules has gotten us nowhere. We're doing this because talking won't stop that weapon from killing billions of innocent people. We're doing this because someone has to, and nobody else will. I'm proud to serve with every single one of you. Whatever happens next, we do it together. Out." The crew responded not with words but with actions. Every station reported ready. Every system showed green. The Indomitable drove forward into the asteroid field, alone and unsupported, carrying nothing but human determination and the desperate hope that one ship could make a difference. Looked at the tactical display, showing the overwhelming forces that surrounded the Star Breaker. "You know this is insane, right?" Completely. Settled deeper into her command chair. "But my grandfather fought in the Mars Rebellion. He told me that humans have a special gift for doing insane things and somehow making them work. Let's prove him right." The Indomitable disappeared into the asteroid field. A single human ship going to war against an empire, carrying the hopes of billions who didn't even know they needed saving. The asteroid field was a navigator's nightmare. Rocks the size of cities tumbled through space in chaotic patterns, their trajectories disturbed by the energy output from the Star Breaker. Radiation played havoc with sensors, and the dense concentration of metal-rich asteroids created sensor shadows that could hide a fleet. Lieutenant earned every credit of her salary as she threaded the Indomitable through gaps that seemed too small for a ship of their size. Watched the helmsman's hands move across her controls with the fluid grace of a concert pianist, making micro-adjustments every few seconds to avoid collision. "Approaching weapons range," reported from the tactical station, getting a clearer picture of the enemy disposition now. The tactical display updated and felt her stomach sink. The situation was worse than their long-range scans had suggested. 6 heavy cruisers formed a defensive perimeter around the Star Breaker, each one of those ships the Indomitable 3 times over. Fighter squadrons patrolled the spaces between the larger vessels, their numbers climbing past 50 as the computer finished its count. "Park status on the Star Breaker itself." The science officer's voice was grim. "Captain, they've accelerated the construction timeline. The weapon will be operational in approximately 18 hours. Once it's charged, they can begin firing within minutes." 18 hours. Even if Coalition Command had suddenly developed a sense of urgency, they couldn't mobilize a fleet and reach this location in less than 3 days. This had to be done now, and it had to be done by the Indomitable alone. Tactical assessment: can we win a straight fight? Her first officer didn't sugarcoat it. "No, Captain, not even close. We could maybe take out one of those cruisers if we committed everything we have and got lucky. But the other 5 would turn us into debris before we could reload. The fighters alone could overwhelm our point defense. That's what I thought, drummed her fingers on her chair's armrest, a habit she'd picked up from her mentor at the academy. We need an edge, something they won't expect. Lieutenant's voice came through the comm system from engineering. Captain, I might have something. Permission to come to the bridge. Granted, get up here fast. The engineer arrived within 3 minutes, slightly out of breath, and carrying a data pad covered in complex calculations. She pulled up a holographic display above the tactical table. The Starbreaker's power core is built around exotic matter, explained, highlighting a specific section of the weapon. It has to be to generate that kind of energy output. Now, our FTL drive is experimental, designed by human engineers using principles the Council races thought were too unstable. The jump drive that everyone said would blow us up, asked. That's the one. The Council prefers their old, reliable technology. Slower but safer. Humans, being humans, wanted something faster and built a drive that messes with dimensional boundaries. His eyes lit up with the kind of excitement that engineers got when they found an elegant solution to an impossible problem. If we deliberately overload our FTL drive at point-blank range to the Starbreaker, we can create a dimensional instability. The exotic matter in their power core will resonate with it, causing a cascading failure. Park studied the calculations, her expression shifting from skeptical to shocked. This would work. The reaction would tear the Starbreaker apart from the inside, but there are problems. Always are, said. Give me the bad news. We'd have to be within 200 meters of the core to trigger the effect. That means flying through all those defenses, surviving long enough to reach the target, and keeping the ship stable while the drive overloads. The overload sequence takes 90 seconds, during which we'd be a sitting target. Nodded. And there's one more thing. The dimensional instability will propagate outward from our position. We'd need to evacuate the crew to escape pods before the cascade completes, or we all die with the weapon. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They had come here expecting to fight and probably die, but was proposing something different. A suicide run with a slim chance of survival for most of the crew, at the cost of losing the Indomitable itself. How do we get through those defenses? Asked Ever Practical. Studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. They had superior numbers and firepower, but they were following a standard defensive formation. Standard was predictable. Predictable could be exploited. We use everything we have, she said slowly, the plan forming as she spoke. Deploy all our drones and give them aggressive attack patterns. Launch every missile in our inventory on delayed timers, scattered across the field. Make it look like we're throwing everything at them in a desperate alpha strike. A distraction, said, catching on. Exactly. We'll focus on the immediate threats, the missiles and drones that are actually shooting at them. While they're busy, we use these asteroids for cover and speed to punch through the gap in their formation right here. She pointed to a section of the defensive perimeter where two cruisers' sensor coverage overlapped imperfectly. It's a narrow window, but can thread it. The helmsman looked at the approach vector and nodded. It'll be tight, but yes, Captain, I can make that run. Once we're through, we head straight for the Starbreaker's core. No stopping, no fancy maneuvers. We're committed at that point. Looked at each of her officers. The moment we're in position starts the overload. You coordinate the evacuation to escape pods. We get as many people off as possible before the cascade completes. What about you, Captain? Park asked. Someone needs to keep the ship steady during the overload. I'll stay on the bridge with a skeleton crew until the last possible moment. She saw the protests forming and held up her hand. That's not up for debate. I got us into this. I'll see it through. They spent the next hour preparing, and her engineering team programmed the overload sequence and ran simulations until they had it down to a precise routine. Organized evacuation protocols, designating which escape pods each crew section would use. Program the attack run into the navigation computer, though everyone knew she'd be flying most of it manually. Park configured all their drones with the most aggressive combat algorithms in the database. The missiles received time-delayed detonation sequences, set to go off at intervals that would keep the occupied for as long as possible. Finally, address the crew one last time. This is going to be rough. We're going to take damage. Some of us won't make it, but if we succeed, we save billions of lives. That's what we signed up for. That's what it means to serve. Are you ready? The affirmative responses echoed through the ship, voices from every department, every species in her crew. Humans, yes, but also in engineering who believed in what humans stood for. Sensors who had fled the Advance and wanted revenge. The Indomitable might have been a human ship, but it carried the hopes of everyone who believed that action mattered more than politics. All hands battle stations, take us in. The Indomitable emerged from behind a massive asteroid at full thrust. Alarms immediately blared as sensors detected them. The enemy cruisers began to turn, their weapons powering up. Fighter squadrons broke formation to intercept. Launching drones, reported. Drones away, launching missiles, missiles away. Space filled with ordnance. 24 drones, each one broadcasting aggressive targeting locks, scattered across the battlefield. Missiles streaked toward the ships, their engines leaving bright trails in the darkness. They did exactly what had predicted. They focused on the immediate threats. Point defense lasers lit up space, targeting the drones and missiles. Fighters vectored to intercept. The cruisers shifted their formation to maximize their defensive coverage. For a handful of crucial seconds, nobody was watching the narrow gap in their perimeter. Saw her opening and took it. The Indomitable accelerated hard, her engines pushed beyond normal safety limits. The ship rattled and groaned under the stress, but hands never wavered. They shot through the gap between two cruisers, close enough that could see the details of their hull plating. Then they were through, and the Starbreaker filled the incoming fire shouted. They had realized their mistake. Energy beams slashed through space, some missing by meters, others finding their target. The Indomitable's shields flared and sparked. Hull plating vaporized. A beam punched through the port side and heard the atmospheric alarms as that section automatically sealed. Shields at 40%, reported. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Damage control teams responding. Keep us moving. Evasive pattern Delta 7. The ship jinked left, right, diving under an asteroid and using it for momentary cover. More hits slammed into them. The lights flickered as power systems struggled. Sparks flew from a console and Park had to abandon her station. They were 2 kilometers from the Starbreaker. The structure loomed like a small moon, its energy bridges pulsing with deadly power. Defensive turrets tracked their approach, adding their firepower to the cruisers behind them. 1 kilometer. The ship shuddered as a hit took out their aft shields entirely. Reported casualties but couldn't think about that now. They had to reach the core. 500 meters. Screamed through an opening in the Starbreaker's framework, using the weapon's own structure as cover against some of the incoming fire. They were inside now, surrounded by technology designed to end worlds. 200 meters, start the sequence. Beginning overload now, Captain. 90 seconds to cascade. Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Move. The evacuation alarm howled through the ship. Crew members abandoned their posts, running for the designated escape pods. Watched the countdown on her display as more hits rocked the Indomitable. Shields gone. Weapons offline. Life support failing on multiple decks. 60 seconds to cascade. Captain, you need to go. Not yet, keep us steady. The helmsman's hands were locked on her controls, fighting to maintain their position as the defenders poured fire into them. Sweat dripped down her face. I've got it, Captain. I've got it. 45 seconds, Captain, please. Appeared at her side. Captain, I've got you need to get to a pod. Commander, I gave you an order to evacuate. And I'm disobeying it, Captain. Same as you disobeyed Coalition command. Seems to be a human thing. He smiled at her. Needs help keeping us stable. I can do that. You've got a sister and 2 kids who need their aunt to come home. Go. Looked at her first officer, her friend. She wanted to argue, to order him away, but she saw the determination in his eyes. Had made his choice, just as she had made hers. 30 seconds to cascade. Thank you, ran for the nearest escape pod where was already sealing herself in. She could hear over the comm, counting down the final seconds. The escape pods launched, small spheres racing away from the dying ship. Pod spun, and through the small viewport, she saw the Indomitable, her home for 3 years, positioned exactly where it needed to be. She saw at the helm, holding their position through sheer determination. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. The dimensional cascade began. The Indomitable's FTL drive tore a hole in reality, and the exotic matter in the Star Breaker's core resonated with it. The weapon's energy bridges exploded in sequence, like dominoes falling. The core itself began to collapse, its containment fields failing. Then everything was light and fire. The Star Breaker detonated with the force of a small star going nova. The shockwave caught the nearby cruisers, tearing them apart. It caught the Indomitable, already breaking apart, and scattered its pieces across the asteroid field. The shockwave caught the escape pods too. Pod tumbled wildly, its structure groaning under forces it was never designed to withstand. Her head struck something hard and darkness claimed her. Her last conscious thought was that they had done it. The weapon was gone. Billions of people would live. Whatever happened to her now didn't matter. They had done it. Pain brought back to consciousness. Every part of her body hurt, from her pounding head to her bruised ribs to her left arm, which she suspected might be broken. She opened her eyes slowly, expecting to see the cramped interior of an escape pod or possibly the afterlife, depending on how badly things had gone. Instead, she saw a white ceiling with soft lights and the unmistakable hum of a medical facility. She was alive. More surprising, she was in a coalition medical center, judging by the equipment around her bed. Captain, please remain still. You've sustained significant injuries. A medical officer appeared beside her bed, her multiple arms working various devices. You have a concussion, 3 broken ribs, a fractured left ulna, and various contusions. You're very lucky to be alive. My crew's voice came out as a croak. Most of them survived. The Coalition rescue ships arrived approximately 3 hours after the explosion. They recovered 47 escape pods. The medical officer's expression softened. I'm sorry, not everyone made it. The shockwave was more powerful than predicted. Closed her eyes. She'd known there would be casualties. That didn't make it easier. Commander. He survived, Captain. Critical condition, but our doctors say he'll make a full recovery. He was pulled from the same escape pod as you. Apparently, he abandoned his post at the last second and joined you. Relief flooded through her. Was alive. She'd have to thank him for disobeying her order. Over the next few days, as her body slowly healed, learned what had happened after the Star Breaker's destruction. Coalition forces had arrived to find the asteroid field transformed into a debris field. The weapon was completely destroyed, along with all 6 cruisers. The Indomitable was gone, scattered atoms mixed with the remains of the Star Breaker. She also learned she was under arrest. Coalition security had posted guards outside her medical room. Once she was healthy enough to move, she would be transferred to a holding facility to await trial. The charges were extensive: violation of the Neutral Corridor Treaty, disobeying direct orders, unauthorized military action, and a dozen other offenses that the Council's lawyers had compiled. Her crew faced charges too, though lighter ones. The coalition accepted her argument that she had ordered them to follow her, that the responsibility was primarily hers. Still, every member of the Indomitable would face a court-martial. The news feeds were everywhere. His face appeared on screens across coalition space. Half the outlets called her a hero who had saved billions of lives. The other half called her a dangerous maverick who had undermined the foundations of coalition unity. The council races were particularly vocal about the need to make an example of her, to show that individual action could not be tolerated. Humanity's response was more mixed. Some human leaders distanced themselves from her actions, insisting that she didn't represent humanity's values. Others praised her courage and demanded the coalition recognize what she had accomplished. There were protests on Earth and New Terra, both for and against her. Park visited her on the third day, walking with a slight limp but otherwise healthy. "Captain, there's something you should know. Intelligence reports are coming in from the neutral systems." "What kind of reports?" They had a secondary plan. If the Star Breaker had become operational, their first targets weren't coalition worlds. They were going to target the neutral systems, force them into submission through fear. We found the targeting data in the debris. Every neutral government from here to the outer reach was on their list. Absorbed this information. It didn't change what she had done, but it did add context. She hadn't just saved coalition citizens. She'd saved the neutral worlds too, the ones who relied on the neutral corridor for their trade and independence. 2 weeks passed. Injuries healed enough for her to be moved to a detention facility on a coalition station. The accommodations were decent enough, more like a hotel room than a prison cell, but the guards made it clear she wasn't free to leave. Was brought to the same facility, still weak but recovering well. They were allowed to see each other under supervision. "So," said, sitting across from her in the common area, "how does it feel to be the most controversial human in the galaxy?" "About how you'd expect. I've had marriage proposals, death threats, and everything in between. Someone started a religion based on what we did. I'm very concerned about that last one." Laughed, then winced and clutched his side. "Don't make me laugh, still hurts. But seriously, Captain, whatever happens at the trial, I want you to know that I'd do it again. All of it. Even the part where you're facing 20 years in a coalition prison." "Even that. My grandfather always said that the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when everything is hard and everyone is watching." He met her eyes. "You did the right thing. We all did." The trial began 3 weeks after the incident. The Galactic Council convened in full session, representatives from all member races present. Was led into the chamber in restraints, flanked by guards. The chamber itself was enormous, designed to impress upon anyone standing in its center just how small and insignificant they were compared to the might of the council. The prosecution was led by a legal expert named, who had spent 3 centuries perfecting his craft. He was considered one of the finest legal minds in the coalition. "Captain," began, his voice resonating through the chamber, "you stand accused of crimes that strike at the very heart of what binds our coalition together. For 17 years, we have fought the Dominion while maintaining the principles that separate us from them. We have rules, laws, and traditions that have preserved peace among our member races for centuries. You broke those rules. You disregarded orders from legitimate authority. You violated sacred treaties. And in doing so, you have placed the entire foundation of our coalition at risk." The prosecution spent hours detailing her crimes. They brought up her service record, noting instances where she had questioned orders or proposed unconventional tactics. They painted a picture of a human officer who had never truly accepted coalition authority, who had been waiting for an excuse to act independently. "The defendant will argue that she saved lives," continued. "But at what cost? If every captain decides they know better than high command, we have chaos. If every soldier chooses which orders to follow, we have anarchy. The Star Breaker was a threat, yes, but it was a threat that would have been addressed through proper channels. When defense attorney, a human woman named Tors, stood up, when would it have been addressed? The weapon would have been operational before the council finished debating. That is speculation, shot back. We will never know what the council would have decided because the defendant didn't give them the chance. She took matters into her own hands and in doing so, violated every principle of collective security that holds the coalition together. The trial continued for days. Expert witnesses about the capabilities of the Star Breaker, about the damage it could have caused, about the timeline for its completion. Coalition military officers explained the chain of command and why it was essential that orders be followed without question. Then the defense began calling witnesses. Admiral, who had fought in the war for 15 years, took the stand. Admiral, Tors asked, in your professional opinion, how long would it have taken the council to authorize military action in the neutral corridor? Was silent for a long moment. If history is any guide, at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. The council is thorough and they value consensus above speed. And the Star Breaker would have been operational in less than a day from the time Captain launched her attack. So by the time the council authorized action, millions would have been dead. Objection, said, speculation. I'll allow it, the lead judge said. Nodded slowly. Yes. Based on the weapon's capabilities and the timeline, multiple core worlds would have been destroyed before the council reached a decision. Tors called witness after witness. Scientists who confirmed the threat. Tacticians who acknowledged that only immediate action could have stopped the Star Breaker. Neutral system representatives who expressed their gratitude for actions. That last group was particularly significant. One by one, ambassadors from neutral governments took the stand and revealed information that shocked the entire council. They had been planning to use the Star Breaker against neutral worlds first, exactly as Park had reported. Intelligence documents recovered from the debris proved it beyond any doubt. The Dominion intended to force us into submission, Ambassador of the Outer Reach Federation explained. They would have destroyed one of our worlds as a demonstration, then demanded our surrender. Captain didn't just save coalition citizens. She saved my people and dozens of other neutral civilizations. The mood in the chamber began to shift. What had started as a straightforward case about a captain who disobeyed orders was becoming something more complex. Then the diplomatic vessel arrived. The entire trial ground to a halt. They had sent an ambassador under a flag of truce, requesting permission to address the council. It was unprecedented. The war had been going for 17 years without a single serious peace negotiation. Now, suddenly, the Dominion wanted to talk. The ambassador, a veteran named, stood before the council and spoke plainly. The destruction of the Star Breaker has changed our political situation. The military faction that pushed for its construction has lost credibility. More moderate voices now control our government. We have seen what humanity is capable of. One captain, one ship, willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. If this is what humanity can do when constrained by coalition rules, what will they do if truly unleashed? We do not wish to find out. We are prepared to negotiate a peace treaty. The chamber erupted. 17 years of war, and it was ending because of actions. Not because of massive military campaigns or brilliant strategic maneuvers, but because one human captain had done something so audacious that it forced both sides to reassess everything. The trial resumed, but its nature had fundamentally changed. Tried to maintain his original argument, but it rang hollow now. How could they punish the person who had ended the war? Tors made her closing argument on the 10th day of the trial. This isn't about whether Captain broke rules. She did. She violated orders and treaties, but this is about whether those rules served their purpose. The rules exist to protect people, to preserve lives, to maintain security. when the rules prevent you from doing those things, when following orders means watching billions.